you glossed over it a little bit, but I think it's a huge thing, especially within my industry of working with student athletes. Is you're a Division III player, and there's a stigma that comes away from being a Division III player that is not quite the same as those that are what we see on TV, the Division I players. And for you to parlay a career not only for 9 years, but be able to craft your own journey beyond the game and implement it in your professional life, I think that's remarkable. What gave you the gumption to be able to even think that you were even qualified to do that?
Man, that's a great question, and there's so many different answers. We could have a whole conversation just on that question alone, Bill. So, the first thing is, I was always into reading and writing from a very young age, even before I was playing basketball. My mother's an educator, so she had me reading and writing before I even started, kindergarten. So I was ahead of the other kids just because I basically had a teacher at the house. So I was always into reading books, and because of that, I've always been able to kind of get my own information. Now I did what I needed to do in school, but I was always interested in getting information outside of just what school was teaching. I've always been into like the human psychology section of the bookstore. Now they have a personal development section, but they didn't even have that 20 years ago. It was just called human psychology. So I was always into that stuff. And I also, just looking around the adults around me when I was growing up, they all worked, for the most part, they would work traditional type of jobs. The thing is, none of them ever seemed super excited about their work. And at the same time, they were always at work. And then at the same time, they always had some type of issue when it came to money, not necessarily not having it, but there was no extra. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I would ask my parents something, and my parents would say these phrases that we get asked about nowadays. Does it look like I'm made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees. And I said, oh, okay. All right, that clears it up. so those things were always in my head from a youth. The thing is, I was looking at the adults around me, and I'm like, they don't look that happy. I mean, they're not sad. They're not in terrible shape, but they just don't seem that happy. So is there another way to live? So I was always wondering if there was. I wasn't consciously thinking it, but it was in the back of my mind. So when I read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, that book really opened my mind a lot and changed a lot for me. But when I read that book and Robert just explained the concept of how you don't have to do all the work yourself and how you shouldn't not always work for money. It's not that it's bad to do it, but not always do it so that you can free yourself up to do other things and maybe create some leverage for yourself. It's just planting a seed in my mind. And even though Robert was mostly talking about real estate in the book, the principles could apply to anything. So when I read it, I said, this is what I'm going to do.
Just the audacity to say I'm a Division III player who wasn't consistently on the team, even in high school, but I'm going to take some of the principles that I've learned and apply it to life and be able to kind of bet on myself. I mean, from the outside looking in, you come from the basketball field, just like I come from the basketball field. I played college basketball as well. And I think people look down on those that are in Division III or Division II or so on and so forth. But you've been able to craft your own lane, man. Make your own lane and be successful at that.
I'm a competitor, Bill. I've always been a competitor. So whenever people ask me, Dre, what was the drive and the motivation and the commitment that let you, keep trying to play pro ball when you came from a Division III school, I tell them it's just the competition, it's the competitive aspect within me. And it's not even necessarily competing against a person. It's not like there's any one person who I was trying to prove anything to this whole time that I was trying to get on. Yeah. It was really just competing against the situation because of what you just said. That somebody would look at you like, all right, you play Division III, or you're playing here and you're going to do your thing here, but this isn't going anywhere when this is done.
This is it for you.
Even when I was in school at my Division III college, we had the other students will come to the games, they watch us play, but they're looking at us like, all right, y'all ain't going nowhere. Y'all going to play here, and then it's going to be over. You ain't going to the NBA. Yeah. That's what they wouldn't say that all the time directly to our faces, but I knew that was the way that they were looking at things. And then you see the players at the Division I schools because I went to school in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So around us, there were a bunch of Division I schools. You had St. Francis College, PA. You had State College, which is the main campus of Penn State, Division I school. You had Pittsburgh's only 2 hours away. The Philly school is only 3 hours away. So there was a lot of Division I and Division II schools around us. So people look at us, and even some of my own teammates, honestly, when I was in college, a lot of my teammates, they didn't see themselves as capable of measuring up to those players at that level. I personally always looked at myself as I was a very late bloomer in basketball. I didn't really feel like I was good until I was about 18, probably like the summer after graduating high school before I started college. So I knew I still had growing to do. And the players who were at the Division I and Division II, I mean, how do you get onto a D1 or D2 roster Usually it's through scholarship. Usually it's because you showed a high level of talent and potential when you were 16, 17 years old. That's how you get a scholarship.
Yeah.
When I was 16, 17, I wasn't showing talent and potential because I barely started playing. So I didn't have it yet. But I knew I could compete with those guys as I matured and grew into my game. It was only maybe 2 or 3 of us on my whole campus, my Division III school. And I'm talking about everybody on campus, basketball players included, who really would look at ourselves and then look at those guys at the D1 and D2s around us and say, those guys are not above me. All right, yeah, you're playing at a D1, I'm at a D3, but if we get on the court, it's me and you. It's not D1 against D3, it's me against you. But most of the teammates that I played with in college, they didn't look at themselves like that. They looked at themselves as the position that they are. Oh, those guys are D1, those guys are D2. They didn't even want to compete, let alone were they going to try. Yeah. And the funny thing enough, me and one other guy that I played ball with in college were the only 2 guys that ever come out of my campus who ever played pro. So it's really, a lot of it is mentality. A lot of it is mindset. Do you actually believe that you are capable of doing something that most people don't think they're capable of doing? How much do you believe in yourself? It really starts with that. And when you believe in yourself, you put yourself on a certain vibration that, combined with your abilities, I'm not saying that this can replace ability. If you have ability, you combine it with that vibration of actually believing you can do something, that's when you get the potential of actually doing it. But if you're missing either one, then you're going to come up short.
So you're saying not only just believing, but also following it up with action on a daily basis in pursuit of that, right?
Absolutely. And you got to have the ability to do something. Like, you can try. If you have no talent, there's only so far you're going to go.
Hoop Loud